Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to the Universal Jones Show, the channel where a lot of stuff happens. We share constructive information, we goof around, we learn, we laugh, we fight, we do a lot of stuff here. But tonight, we're going to be focusing on a very serious issue that we've covered on the channel a few times during our series called Hidden Harms, featuring myself and my good friend Lionel Suggs. Today, we're going to dive into the Epstein Files. Yes, this has been around for a while. Many people have covered it. But Lionel has an interesting perspective on the Epstein Files, and he's actually seen some clips that he believes that we should take a little bit of a further dive into and talk about this worldwide global issue of abuse that we see with children. It is unfortunate that this is happening and it continues to go on. It is literally the hidden harm. This stuff happens all the time, and most people do not talk about it. I've shared in before in this series, Lionel was one of the first people to force me to start talking about it and being honest about what I've seen and what I see all the time. And honestly, since me and him have had these dialogues, I see news clip after news clip, incident after incident of children being trafficked, sexually abused, mistreated by their parents. This stuff is happening on and on and on again. So one thing we try to do here is have some honest conversations about stuff. It's not always just about Boyd and Boyd activities. We do try to talk about real topics that affect real people all the time, and this is one of them. A lot of people in Boyd have been abused, believe it or not. As we learn more and more about these folks that are around us, and it's a sad reality and a sad truth. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring in my man Lionel Suggs. Lionel, how are you doing this evening,
Good
sir?
evening, man.
What's going on, man? How are you?
It's been a week, but it's getting better. It's getting better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's been a long day for me, man. It's been a long week, but today was long as hell. Couldn't cancel on you though. I could cancel on my guys because I know
Dude,
what I would heard. Oh,
it's
you
definitely
do
been a
shows
long
with
week.
these females, but you ain't gonna do no show with me.
Heck yeah.
So I couldn't fold. But salute to RLM in the building. Hope you're doing well. I seen you had a stream earlier. Definitely, if you want to weigh in on this topic, feel free. We will have some opportunities for chat to weigh in a little bit later. But yeah, man, it's been a long week. What have you? It's been a long time since we've done an episode. What's been happening in your world? What have been some things that you've seen since our last stream? What's been going on?
Things I've seen is a continuous escalation of violence and abuse. Unfortunately, stories don't get better. There are people that are trying to illuminate them. Unfortunately, these stories are not going to get a Taylor Swift or Rihanna viewership. And you have more people concerned about Ariana Grande's weight than they are about these children being trafficked and abused. And just like you, the stories keep coming, man. And when you go into this, it's like when we look at catastrophic system failures, we always ask the same question: how did nobody see this?
Mm-hmm.
But as the vast, unsealed archive of the Epstein files continue to prove, the truth is much worse. People did see it. Pilots, housekeepers, scientists, politicians, billionaires stood in the same rooms. They saw it, they made a calculation. In the economy of higher power, silence is the ultimate unit of exchange. And you trade your silence for access, for funding, for prestige, for protection. And at the same transaction, this is going to happen every single day in ordinary life, in boardrooms, in churches, local communities, families. Whenever the comfort of adults is prioritized over the safety of a child. And that's why we're here today to break down the anatomy of the Epstein files, unpacking how power protects itself, and exposing the deadly price of the currency of silence. But I also want to say this. There's a profound hypocrisy in how society talks about harm. When abuse happens in low income or marginalized communities, it's labeled a cultural crisis. Heavily policed, it's splashed across the news. But when it happens inside of a Manhattan townhouse, private jet, gated estates, it's shielded by non disclosure agreements, top tier legal retainers, and institutional respectability. The Epstein files aren't just a record of individual crimes. They are literally a blueprint of how class privilege acts as a fortress against accountability.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. Um, one of the things that I've picked up on since our last show was how many parents are causing direct harm to their kids. Not always sexual, but there's a lot of parents that are causing harm to their own children. And one of the quotes that you've said repeatedly that always rings in my head when I hear people say kindness is kindness is used as a weapon. It's a tool.
Yeah.
And we assume that parents are supposed to be kind to their children, but we have so much evidence that they're not always, and most of the times they aren't. And when I think about my career as a therapist, a lot of the work that I've done, even since I stopped practicing clinically, a lot of people's issues stem from the issues with their parents. A lot of people's trauma starts before they're even born, and it sprinkles onto them. So when I look at things like the Epstein files and all these clips me and you go back and forth discussing and sharing, it always stems back to the parents, man. And it's just like, damn, like this is a never-ending cycle. Some people giving up their kids into this life too. It's fascinating. It's fascinating.
And that's why I say abuse it's a very encompassing topic, because it's not just one form. When people hear me, like, again, they will think of sexual abuse, but it encompasses a lot, from just sheer psychological to spiritual to physical, and a lot of that ends up intersecting. And like I brought up, a lot of it is caused by the parents. And then, unfortunately, parents end up the next set of parents ends up causing it on their children. And then those children grow up and repeat the cycle. And like you brought up, some of the parents put their children in harm's way. They're not directly doing it, but they're indirectly doing it.
And then the excuse becomes, well, we don't know. We didn't know. We didn't understand. But that's why we're here, to bring some awareness and some understanding, and people to ask those tough questions, really to yourself. Because we can always analyze other people. But honestly, man, I think in order to stop this, we all have to take a collective effort to do something about it.
I agree.
And it's not holding other people accountable, it's holding ourselves accountable, protecting, the young ones that we care about around us, but also just not turning a blind eye to the obvious, but learning what the obvious is. Because honestly, man, until you start to develop some awareness around this, you miss a lot of stuff. And I've come to a lot of different awakenings on what this stuff is. So it is fascinating. It is fascinating. So you ready to transition to some of the clips?
Yeah, let's show the audience some of the clips that we got.
All right, do you want to tee it up? Give us a little insight. What were you thinking with Epstein? How did this come up for you?
So, well, I wanted to talk about this a while ago, but the whole thing about this is, when it was being talked about, there was hype behind it, and then that hype died, because silence is the ultimate currency. Even if it happened already, it's still happening in other places, because the Epstein files itself is not a single binder or a clean, compiled, neat ledger. It is a vast, fragmented ecosystem of judicial records, flight logs, police evidence, search warrant returns, deposition transcript, civil discoveries, government intelligence files. They have spent years culminating in the unsealing of major civil dockets and massive federal record disclosures. Like, these files literally have provided an unvarnished window into one of the most sophisticated, high-level child sex trafficking and influence peddling networks in modern history. And this, I could be sounding like a newspaper article when I say that, but it's true. And then when you put it out into the open, and then people see that nothing gets done because of this, it definitely makes people ask, well, what are we supposed to do? Or how are we supposed to look at this? Instead of continuously talking about it, it gets a couple videos and then the hype dies down. When this should be something that's constantly being put in people's faces, because the problem isn't that people didn't know, it's that people did know.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right, here's our first clip. This is coming by way of TMZ. Inside Epstein Island, survivor finally speaks out. Do you know anything about this woman specifically?
I
There's
actually do.
several.
No, I do not know this one, but
All
there
right.
are several. So that's actually what started to lead, real quick. Like, that's what actually started to create the whole Epstein file investigation, because it wasn't like the result of a proactive federal law enforcement. It was literally driven by decades of survivors. And then that led to, investigative journalism and then civil litigation. But that's how these actually came into light. It's multitude of different survivors coming out and speaking. And then that created a ripple effect.
Yeah. Well, let's hear this woman's story. Here we go.
We had the day off or whatever, and she's just like, let's go to my friend's island. It's just literally like right over there. I just noticed an older guy in the pool with the younger girls. Coming from the modeling business, that wasn't anything out of the ordinary. The person that I saw on the island was former Prince Andrew. I met Epstein at that point. A little bit later on, one of the other girls, she knocked on the door and just was like, look, Jeffrey's ready for his massage. Jeffrey said, you have to do it. But I'm like, me? Because I blocked out what happened in that room for so many years. I remember that night just staying up and just staring at the ceiling all night and just counting the hours and the minutes until I could get on that boat and get off of that Dove Island. He was, and Ghislaine and whoever else were abusing minors. That was hard.
I'm sorry.
That was hard.
Hey guys, it's Jackson Buhai here again with TMZ. Today I'm joined by Lisa Phillips, an Epstein survivor, and also the host of the From Now On podcast. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I want to say, I'm so thrilled that you're here talking to me today because, we've interviewed in the last couple of months a handful of Epstein survivors who have given very compelling interviews. The same question that I started out asking them, I will ask you. Who were you before Jeffrey Epstein, and how did you come into contact with him?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to thank you for having myself and the girls that you've had on before, my survivor sisters. And all of our stories are very, very similar, but as you'll learn today, the process is different for all of us. Who I was before, very happy, bubbly, loved to be in front of the camera, outgoing. I'm an extrovert, I think, by nature. I always spent a lot of alone time.
Right.
I always had this little inner thing of visioning what my future was going to be. And I have to say, a lot of what I envisioned from my teenage years have come true. And I've just always stuck to, you know, that person inside of me. And my life has derailed and gone in different directions, but I've always had that like knowing inside of me that I've always wanted to be a little bit more in front of the camera and to have an impact on the world. Now that everything's happening like that, it's like, wow, that's what I always envisioned for myself. But I'm also still shocked that it's come about in this way, you know. I never really thought that it was going to be about this master manipulator, serial predator that everyone in the entire world was pretty much obsessed with. And I'm still uncovering so much of my story in the last couple of years that I didn't really understand from back then.
Right. And so, from my understanding, you were 21 when you first came into contact with Epstein. And like you said, you were happy, you were outgoing. What was your first interaction with Epstein like? And how did you get to that point of meeting him?
Well, Epstein's, I guess you can say, genius plan is that he had a lot of the young girls bring other girls, which made you complicit in a way. And that's kind of how he kept you silenced. And so I was also brought by another young girl. And I was just on a photo shoot. I had worked my way after graduating high school in Belgium, and I worked in Europe and traveled a bit around the world as a model. And, you know, since I was 15, 16, I found myself in New York, like in my early 20s, and really excited to be there with a really good agency. And I was flown to an island to do a photo shoot I was really excited about. And the other young girl that was with me, she was an Eastern European, and we had the day off or whatever. And she's just like, let's go to my friend's island. It's just literally like right over there. And he said, we can go and hang out there just for the day. We talked to the clients. They were British. And they said, yeah, go ahead and go, just be back. So weird. They would let us go to a totally different island. Makes you wonder who knew what back then. But we did. We just took off for the day.
Yeah.
You know, was sent a boat, went over to an island, and just had fun for the day, just hanging out. Nothing was really out of the ordinary. An older guy in the pool with the younger girls. Coming from the modeling business, that wasn't anything out of the ordinary. And then I had a dinner, and I met Epstein at that point. And just a normal dinner, except for the fact that he was an older man we were a bunch of younger girls. He asked a lot of questions about all of us to really get to know us, but I was the new girl. And he just asked a lot of questions about, you know, where I grew up in my life and, you know, my ambitions and things like that. So it just made me feel really comfortable at that point.
Take me into that moment.
All right, I want to get some of your perspective on this. Now, I picked up on some stuff
Go for it.
that we've heard from predators themselves. The biggest thing being the way that she was brought in was through other girls who were being victimized. It's a telltale sign. A lot of and she hit it right in the head. That means you're complicit. You're agreeing, right? You're being brought in by a quote unquote friend. You know, these aren't the predators I bring here. You came to us. That was one thing. Another thing I picked up on, this girl was already been exposed to portions of this lifestyle being a model, right? She slipped. She said, you know, I seen an older man in a pool with a younger girl. That wasn't uncommon from where I come from.
Yep, that wasn't uncommon.
So she's already, even though she hasn't been trafficked or victimized, she's been exposed enough to this world where she had a level of comfortability just off the things that she's experienced as a model, which when we've had a conversation about this, a lot of girls are indirectly being exposed to this lifestyle through media. Spin that shit. Like when we hear those songs, we watch these shows, hell, even Streamer University. Like when we see these things, these girls are being predisposed to this type of lifestyle already without even really truly being in it. So those are two things that I picked up on. Any thoughts from the first part of the clip?
I mean, that's what I saw too, honestly. Literally. Like, and I will say I did like his question that he started with, who were you before this situation? I thought that was a nice way to open that up. But yeah, everything else, that's exactly what I was saying also. And the manipulation begins. And you seeing he's being nice, he's getting to know her, asking about her. And the only thing she's finding weird is this older guy with these younger girls. But at the same time, like we said, she already said it's common.
Yeah, it's common. Damn, man. The other interesting thing, she was a little older, right? She's 21. I think a lot of times when we hear about Epstein and these young girls, we're thinking sub 18, but it sounds like they just had young girls across the gamut. And again, you get a young girl to bring another young girl in. Oh, there's some 21-year-olds here. That might entice a 16, 17-year-old to hang out with older girls. This is very fascinating tactics. Very fascinating. All right, we'll keep
All right,
playing.
keep going.
Where you walk into the room and Epstein's there. What's he doing? Is there anything you notice about the room that stuck out to you? How did he greet you? What was the conversation like?
Well, you got to remember, in the early 2000s, nobody knew about Epstein. Nobody cared. It wasn't like it was a big deal to meet him at all. So I didn't really think anything of it. It was just the person that owned the island that was at the dinner table. I do know that the other young girls that were there, they were all blonde hair, blue eyed, and not that that really matters, but with him it matters. It was more of a mentoring type of environment. He wasn't a playboy. He didn't have that vibe to him at all. He was more of a mentor and ask those types of questions to really kind of get into your psyche and get to know who you were. And I mean, obviously, it's to figure out who you are, how you're going to be easily manipulated or not. But he asked a lot of questions about my family and, how present was my father and things like that. And my major ambitions, what were they?
How
I
present
a
was
very
my father?
young person.
You heard her. How present was my father?
You want to say more about that?
Because, that's what they ask. They want to know what's going on with the parents. Once they find out what's going on with the parents, makes it easier for him. He's actually playing by the playbook, unfortunately. Because we've heard some of them say it's easier for them to go after the children that have the absent parents or don't really have the father in the life. Not saying that's our situation, but they got to do the investigation.
Right.
Go ahead.
Person. So I told him, like, I want to, act in films, and one day I want to write a book. I had all these like big aspirations at the time.
Can you walk me through the turning point of when you realized this is not at all what I thought this was going to be?
Yeah. I think you've spoken to a few survivors, and this always this point of where something turns. And of course, I wasn't expecting anything. We were supposed to get back on that boat and go back to the island. We were not supposed to stay the night. But during dinner, it was getting late, and he said, "Oh, you can't go back on the boat. You're going to have to stay the night." And so we weren't expecting that. So we did have a change of clothes just because we knew we were going to be. So we just kind of got changed into something to sleep in that night, and we're back in the room just hanging out, had to stay the night. So we just figured we would just, hang out talking and go to bed and then go back to the clients in the morning. It didn't quite go down that way because a little bit later on, one of the other girls from the dinner, she knocked on the door and just was like, "Look, Jeffrey's ready for his massage." And so that was when the first red flag, because I wasn't there to give him a massage. And the girl I was with was like, "Oh gosh, like I didn't think he was going to do this, but sometimes he likes these like massages." And I'm like, "Well, what are you talking about, massage?" Because I don't know how to. I've never massaged a man before. And you got to remember, like, I'm in my early 20s, but he was old, so it was just weird. It turned at that point because it was like, "No, you got to do it. You have to do it." And I was just like, "I don't want to do it." And the girl was like, "Well, Jeffrey said you have to do it." And so I'm like, "Me?" So I think at that point, it turned a little bit because that's not what I expected, but I didn't expect anything beyond that. I just said, "Okay, well, we'll just go do this massage." And so I went with her and went all the way across the island to his area where he lived and walked in, and It was an actual massage. We did learn massage techniques. And I mean, I can't really remember if it was 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes, but after the massage kind of was over, he did flip over. And that's when everything turned, because that was the moment where it was like, gotcha, you know. So this is what's going to happen now. And that was orchestrated of what he wanted us to do next. As we all know about Epstein now, is it's always a massage that turns into an assault. And he ended up assaulting myself and that other girl there that night in that room.
When I hear these testimonies, it's difficult to find the words to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because there aren't any words to describe how horrific he was.
Mm-hmm.
It's really shocking to think that there are people on this planet that exist like that, that would do things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to touch on something that you briefly mentioned, which was that you learned massage techniques. Walk me through that. Was that something that he told you to learn or somebody else?
Well, I say real massage techniques because it's really important to understand that this man liked massages. In part of his sick mind, this massage is part of just bringing you into the room to get you to put your hands on him.
Pause it.
Right? So it's a massage, but he has a nefarious.
So, if you don't know that, what was it, as early as 1996, this is when this girl, Maria Farmer, she reported Epstein to the FBI and NYPD after being abused. But nothing was initiated at that time. It wasn't until 2005 when the family of a 14-year-old girl contacted the Palm Beach police in Florida. That's when they did a local investigation and they uncovered dozens of underage girls being paid small money to provide massages. And they all confirmed that it was escalated to sexual abuse at Epstein's Palm Beach estate. So this guy, he had one form of a formula. We'll find out later that he had other forms, but this lady right here that's speaking is talking about one of the forms that they uncovered that he was utilizing.
Can you speak more towards this concept of a formula? What does that do from a predator's mindset? Like, why do they need a formula or a system or whatnot? Like, what is
Remember, they are systematic assassins. They are methodical tacticians. A lot of these predators who have an average count, they have a metric of how they do things. Some like to maneuver in small towns, become a gym coach. Some like to hang out, at the parking lot. Some like to hang out at the playground. Everyone has a method of how they do something. And once it works, it starts to become a line. Once it becomes a line, it becomes a pattern. And then it becomes a consistency of this is how I can trap my victims because they know it works. And his line, again, listen to what she said about how they got there. And then listen to how he talked to her, made her feel comfortable, asked the right questions. By the time it got late, you can't go nowhere. I mean, the dude is casual with it. He knows what he's doing. He knows the formula. The other girl already has been experienced this. Even remember what she said, the other girl was like, I didn't think he was going to do this. He does this sometimes. He's got a formula.
Absolutely. Welcome to the panel, Urban. How are you doing today, sir?
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I don't know how much you caught so far. Do you have anything you want to weigh in on this?
No, not yet, not yet. But I caught the beginning of it, so I've been listening. But what I want to do is I want to go ahead and cross stream this on my platform too, so I get some subs over
Go
here.
for it. Go for it. Appreciate that. All right, we're gonna continue to roll the clip. Lionel, whenever you want me to stop it, or Urban, just
I
say
got
idea of what's going to happen next, but he's got to get you comfortable with the massage. I mean, every survivor that I've ever talked to that's come in contact with Epstein starts out in a massage. And you can't just pull someone into a room and be like, haha, there's not a massage going on. We're just going to have a little fun. No, it's an actual massage. So that's what I'm saying. It was an actual teaching you how to massage the muscles and on the back, you know, and just get you to relax and be like, oh, this is not bad.
It seems to be a common method of his grooming because, like you, that's every single story. That is his go-to: massage, massage, massage. That's the bottleneck for I'm going to teach you how to get comfortable with touching me. And
yeah, you're right.
It's awfully sick.
Yeah.
So again, I'm extremely sorry that happened to you.
That's actually important that you just said that. I never really thought of it like that from like a man's point of view. Like you're just getting comfortable with touching me. Yeah. There's a lot that goes into the grooming of getting you to even do a massage to begin with. Yeah.
And so I'm wondering what the aftermath of that was like. Did you go back to the room afterwards?
We did. We ran out of there.
You ran out of there.
Yeah. Once it was done, it was just done.
Oh God.
And we ran out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Ran across. I can still vividly even remember running across the island to get back.
Mm-hmm.
And staying up. That's what I remember the most because I blocked out what happened in that room for so many years. Reconnecting with survivors makes me understand and remember, you know, what happened so much in the room. But I remember that night just staying up and just staring at the ceiling all night and just counting the hours and the minutes until I could get on that boat and get off of that fucked up island. You know, so that's what I remember the most.
Would you say your body was almost in this fight or flight mode?
It wasn't even fight or flight, it was frozen. Yeah, I was frozen. Yeah. And that's kind of what they get off on is that fear. You know, when you're sick like that, it's they like that frozen girl that can't do anything, doesn't know what to do, and then the fear in your eyes.
That's the other common theme is power. I want control over this other person's mind, body, action. Control was a huge foundation of who he was.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing I've picked up on over the year that I've been studying this case. You know, there's still so much more to learn, which is why I'm thankful that you're here.
Thank you.
Describe the island to me. I mean, some testimony that I've heard is that he was obsessed with paintings, with sculptures, with architecture. Was there anything specifically that stood out to you on there while you were there?
Well, you have to understand there's like the difference of my young mind there that wasn't thinking anything, who thought the island was beautiful, you know, and so no, I didn't notice those things. But now that we're looking at the island and looking at the pictures and stuff like that, now so much more of it makes more sense. But it's not something of someone who's just brought there would really pick up on that. I had just met him, so I didn't really know the way he thought about things. So I would just think of it as being beautiful art. Now we're knowing it's kind of a sick art, you know, and unusual things that were on the island. And I think only as a real adult you can pick up on those things or knowing him. But back then I just didn't, you know, just la-di-da. I was like, you know, I wasn't thinking anything like that.
Fast forward, you leave the island. Did you hear from him again? Did anybody reach out to you?
Well, this is what I try to explain where the grooming process comes in, because I was a young model. There were hundreds of models that were abused in that time frame.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want anything to do with him, with that island, even with the friend who brought me. I just separated myself from that experience and tried to just move on with my life. But Jeffrey had secretaries that worked for him, and they would call my model agency to try to get me to go back to meet with him. And I think we're missing one important detail is the person that I saw on the island, I thought, and learned later on, was former Prince Andrew. So I believe when you're in that orbit and you've seen people that are important and you kind of have seen what goes on that island, you can't really get away. And you have to be in that orbit. And so there has to, now I've just escaped, I'm gone. I think he had to make sure that I was kind of like, no, you're going to be under this control a little longer. So his people were reaching out to me.
So what some people don't know is that unless you really looked into this case, he really did weaponize the modeling agency pipeline, and he basically there's a significant portion of his victims that were aspiring or active models. This is information that we did discover. It's not an accidental detail, it is literally deliberate. And it was a structural pipeline designed to exploit young girls. When they look across, he had an ecosystem. And from Manhattan, Palm Beach, Zorro Ranch, Paris, Little St. James, they tell you that the total number of women and minor girls victimized over 3 decades easily reaches into the hundreds. And the Epstein Victims Compensation Program evaluated and paid out claims to more than 135 survivors, possessing documented proof of abuse. So the girl's not talking out of her ass. She's telling you stuff that has been literally documented.
I have a question. And either one of you can take a swing at it here. If Epstein were simply an isolated individual, would his case have been become as extensive as it did? What does this story tell us about the environment surrounding offenders?
If it was simply an isolated individual, his case would have been invisible. That's what that's what it is. But the problem is too many people knew. And this isn't like, oh man, nobody knew. No, people knew. A lot of people knew, and they chose to be silent. Again, the earliest indicator was back in 1996. And it took them up until 2005 for them to actually open up something against him. And it wasn't until 2007, 2008 that he actually had the illusion of a consequence. But a lot of people remained silent, the people that were involved. He was protected. And what does this story tell us about the environment surrounding offenders? That they're protected. More often than not, they're protected. But DOJ tells us there's a 2.5 conviction rate. Like, that's nothing. That means these people generally are getting away with this. Oh, that's all I got.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's fascinating, man. I remember back in my tinfoil hat days, I used to listen to Prison Planet and Alex Jones all the time. He would mention Epstein. I was not surprised when his name came up more recently. I've heard that name over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if other people were mentioning him, but that was one person that would mention that name all the time. So you're right. The information was out there. It was who wanted to act on it, who didn't want to act on it, etc.
It wasn't even hiding in plain sight. It was in plain sight.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. And then you said 135 paid out victims. Imagine the ones that never
exactly
spoke. Like that's man. Can you think of 135 people anywhere on a stream, in a auditorium, at an event? Like that's a lot of people, man. It's a lot of people. All right, we're gonna keep it going.
Me over and over for many months, and I didn't respond to it, and it kind of scared me. But there was one day that he called me up and he just was like, I remembered on the island you said you wanted to be a model with this particular agency. And I was like, yeah, yeah, that's a dream of mine. And he said, well, you know, the owner's my best friend, and I told her about you, and I think you should go over and meet with her. And in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have gone. But I think when you've been abused by somebody, you kind of have this thing of like, well, maybe he's a good person, or maybe I did something wrong, or I know that I was thinking of it like that, and or just like, you owe me. And it was like the pie in the sky. It was like my big dream and goal that I had been working toward. I had been in that agency many times, you know, traveling around the world. I'm like, here's my book, you know, okay, not yet, you know, traveling again, here's my book, you know. And so I had been working towards that goal. And what he said was true. Went right up that elevator and said, I'm here to see blah, blah, blah. Walked right into her office and she goes, I love Jeffrey. You know.
Ouch.
And so I'm thinking, oh wow, this person cares about him and vice versa. So now I know these agents were involved with him, but I didn't know that then. Now I know what's going on in the mauling industry and the exchange of girls back and forth, which is in the news right now. It was in Vogue recently. You know, it was in the Guardian, you know, of these women model agencies along with the men were sending girls back and forth. Pisses me off. You know, I'm the person I am today is because of what happened to me back then, but I had no idea back then. I had no idea. I just fell into this trap. So I became a model with this agency, switched agencies and started working in this world now. Now I'm a model at this agency and around this world.
And his connections, again, another common theme is he would use his connections to embellish himself, to make his victims think it's actually a privilege to be around me. You should try hard to get as close to me as possible. And even though you're actively trying to distance yourself from what happened, he puts this carrot on a stick of, I actually have what you want if you just come back. And he lures you back in.
Well, that's what he did with every single victim.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's awful. And did anything progress after that? Did you see Jeffrey again?
Well, I mean, I was one of hundreds of girls during that time. So I don't know how he kept up with it all. He had a lot of enenablers, but a lot of girls were offered scholarships to universities, in which many of them went to many universities.
So she may not know, and I get why, but according to court filings, Epstein actually had a centralized database of the names, ages, photos, flight schedules of young women and models brought to the island. That's how he kept up with it. Again, he weaponized the modeling industry pipeline. And he tried to keep tracks. And literally, this is what was in the filings, the court filings.
All right, I'm back, guys.
Welcome back. What are your thoughts? And welcome to your audience for joining. Thanks for all the folks coming over from the Urban Lounge podcast. What are your thoughts, Urban?
Just piggyback on the earlier question, I think that he'll probably get as much popularity as Diddy did, to be honest with you. To be quite honest. And if he was just a normal dude who's kind of like a celebrity, then yeah, he'll probably get as much popularity as Diddy, you know, in this situation, or probably R. Kelly, to be honest with you. But since he had such a very high profile and powerful connections, that's what, you know, that's what got his name put on such a high status that it is right now.
You know, listening to her tell the story about the massages brings up a thought about Deshaun Watson. Are you gentlemen familiar with who Deshaun Watson is?
I am.
Elaborate.
Deshaun Watson is currently a quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, but before this, he was a quarterback for the Houston Texans. He was one of the up and coming rising star quarterbacks in the league. Got into major trouble a few years ago. He was paying women to perform sexually, but he would usher them in through massages. Now, there were like Urban, you have to hop in here. There were like 30 something accounts on him, different women. It was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot, bro.
It was a lot, but he had a system. He had a whole thing. He was flying them out. He had them in Houston. He had a whole thing, and he would listening to how she talks about Epstein, reminding me of hearing some of the accounts on him. This was something that was normal, and I'm like, man, where did this start for him? Because it probably did not start when he got to the NFL. He probably had more resources. It might have started when he was in college or even younger. But that level of access, the level of power, that level of develop these mechanisms is very fascinating. And also, these are not isolated people, even though when they get in trouble, they make it seem like it. But there are institutions behind this. There's people that they know what's going on and how these people are being brought into it. It's very fascinating. Were there anything when you hear about this massage tactic? Does it come to mind any other things that you've all seen when it comes to exploiting people or even children?
So I don't know why Lionel trying to wait on me to answer.
You funny as heck. Give me a second.
So when you talking about massages, so what was that you talking about? Talking about the person who's hired to be a masseuse to seduce women?
Yeah. And to me, and the reason why I'm asking the question, I'll give you a little bit more context. I find that as just a tactic that is being utilized in this case. But are there other things that you all have come across or seen that are other tactics that kind of lure in either women or children?
I had a homeboy who studied to be a masseuse, and he told me the number one reason why he wanted to do that was solely to seduce women. It wasn't to provide them with a service to help them, with any type of chiropractic problems or whatever. It was solely so it could be sexual towards them. So I'm kind of wondering, do a lot of masseuses have that same mindset, especially men masseuses? Do they have that same type of mindset, that ideology?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Now, for us like children, I don't know about that. I never heard of like masseuses doing that to like children and stuff. Not saying that they're capable of doing it, but I just never heard of that. But there are like other predatory techniques that they could do to lure people in. You know what I'm saying? It just depends on the profession that they have going on. Like say for example, one dude, he could be an owner of a candy shop or a toy shop. You know what I'm saying? And he could use that to lure children in.
Yeah, absolutely. What are your thoughts, Lionel?
For this situation, I mean, it's a tactical architecture. He's utilizing plausible deniability, the boundary creep, the incremental version, manufactured complicity, gaslighting. When you ask what it is, I mean, when you're looking at just plausible deniability, he's everything he's framing is basically normal or helpful. When you go into the boundary creep, it's simply micro escalations. He's normalizing crossing particular lines because he's already got your guards down. When you go into manufactured complicities, once you start creating payments or asking for favors and can be perceived as self-blame, then the gaslighting comes in where the system itself is going to tell you that nothing wrong happened. You can quite literally translate this to everyday life. And the massage itself is simply a conduit for micro escalations. because you're going to start on the neutral areas, the shoulder, the back, then you're going to gradually start crossing into physical boundaries, and you are being conditioned to accept higher levels of boundary violation without any single moments of sudden shock that's going to trigger an immediate flight response. So once he flips over and then decides this is what's going to happen, he's already got all your guards down. Doesn't matter if you're afraid. What's about to happen is most likely about to happen.
And that's when you get that trauma response of freeze, which she said a
Yup.
lot of these guys like. They like that deer in headlights kind of moment, unfortunately. Go ahead, Urban. You were about to say something. Feel free to
I'm kind of curious about this too. So, what would be the process of a woman getting to the point where she don't consent to that anymore? Because like when you go to these different masseuses, right? Depending on where you go, some of them they're professional. They're run by companies, right? And so they got policies to, how far a masseuse can go. But you also have these like third party masseuses, right, where they're just pretty much like gig workers, and so they don't necessarily follow a certain type of policy, right? But people have heard about them, like on different socials. Like the biggest one is TikTok and X, right? Where you see these masseuses, right, preferably on X, they be showing their services on X and stuff, right? And women, they become aroused by that, the different techniques that they do, and they end up booking a service what to do, knowing good and well what they already seen on the socials and stuff, right? So that's why I'm just kind of curious on that. What would be the moment where the woman will say that, what, I don't consent to this, even though she already knew what she was getting into?
That's a good question. I think it might change depending on the woman, and I think we're going to hear a little bit about her situation.
Well, in her situation, she wasn't a woman yet. She was a teen model.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, because on the reason why I'm just saying this, because I'm just thinking about a lot of scenarios, like case in point, like there are a lot of women who go out to Jamaica, right? And there's if you go out to Ocho Rios, right, they have this like raft services in Ocho Rio, and so women purposely go to this area was secluded, knowing good and well that these men are going to seduce them and touch out on their bodies and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, well, what would be the point where they would no longer say that, hey, I don't consent to this? It looked good on X, but now I don't consent to that. You know what I'm saying? Then also keep in mind that they're in a secluded area where, they can't call nobody. There's no police out there, nothing like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I think when it gets uncomfortable, I mean, again, some people know what they're getting themselves into. They're seeking that thrill, and once it gets uncomfortable, or they feel violated, or they feel like they lose a sense of control, I think that's when they start to probably back up. That's what I would assume. I'm not 100% sure.
Well, the thing is, she's only saying what the court also said. The island was, it's a 70-acre private island surrounded by water, private security. Like, they had documentation of victims that were trapped on there because they didn't have their passports. This girl at least had a boat waiting to take them back, but that just meant he had a system in place to bring them back. And the fact that she was able to run away isn't unusual, because apparently once he was finished, he did allow people to just run away. But in a lot of cases also, he handed them money. And once you handed them money, immediately after you finish violating them, now this becomes a situation of, it's trying to make you feel guilty because it's like you got paid for your services. So it kind of makes you believe that you wanted to do this.
Yeah, there's a level of complacency in it. Like you
Yeah.
agreed.
Didn't she say at the beginning that she was lured there by like one of her friends or something like that, or
Yup.
did I misunderstood that?
No. Her friend took her there, and she said her and her friend were abused there. However, her friend made the comment that she didn't think he was going to do the massage thing this time, and that he does do this sometimes.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Now, I'm not disregarding everything that Jeff has did. You know what I'm saying? Because I know it's super predatory behavior. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just going by so far what she's talking about. You know what I mean? Where it does seems similar to what other women would do, like either with R. Kelly or they do with Bill Cosby, where they'll say these certain things is happening, but they don't in the report they necessarily don't mention about the consensual part behind it, if that makes any sense. Where they literally volunteer to participate in it, then later on down the line they're saying that they're victims behind it. And then what's even worse about it is that social media, they tend to like focus more on the aspect of these particular stories versus the people who are actual was victims. You know what I'm saying? Where they literally were involved with predatory behavior, and they stories end up getting looked over because social media and different other news outlets focusing on this one as though it's like a Me Too movement or something. But like I say, I haven't heard her full story. Yeah, I'm just hearing what she said so far. This maybe all that will clarify itself. The more we listen to this.
I did bring up some. I don't know if you heard me earlier. I brought up the minimum victim count, and because they had an Epstein victim compensation program, and they evaluated and paid out claims to more than 135 survivors possessing documented proof of abuse. And this was from the mid 1990s to 2019.
Hmm.
So you had over a 25-year span of hundreds of young women who were funneled into his orbit. And while every victim was not didn't go to his island. So that was one thing. That meant they had to go across the board and look at certain things. But this girl actually just brought up how they did reach back out to her. And she was like, she don't know how they were trying to keep track of her or anything like that. But the court itself had documented that they had the names, the ages, the pictures, the addresses of these girls. Anyone that came to this island, they kept track of.
Hmm.
So it kind of puts you that also cross-reference into how, hey, if you was a victim of this island, we can probably prove it. But at the same time, not everyone was going to come back forward because there was that metric of fear.
Gotcha. How old was she? Was she first went to the island?
I don't remember her saying her age.
She said she was like 21. She was young. She was 2021.
Okay.
This particular woman. The girl that brought her in was younger than her, though. She did say that.
Oh, okay. But yeah, we could continue. Yeah, because I'm very curious, to hear a story.
I was one of those that was offered that. A lot of them got jobs through them. They got their visas. They married their husbands through him. Had weddings on his ranch, Zora Ranch, or on his island. I mean, he was deeply involved with the modeling agencies and academia and tech and a lot of different things. For what reason? There's a lot of conspiracy theories out there, and there's a lot of real evidence out there. But for us younger girls, we were just trying to make it in the world, and sometimes in survival mode, and sometimes just trusting people that we shouldn't have trusted. So yeah, I was involved in this mauling agency. Sometimes went to events that he orchestrated, or charity events. I mean, I remember we all went to the Nutcracker, with him and Ghislaine and a bunch of models. So it just was this world that back then we were involved in, but we didn't really connect the dots.
It was just his way of keeping you in arm's reach.
Well, just not only him, the mall agencies as well, and other people that we knew. It was all kind of all together, but we just didn't know like we do today.
Right.
Like why?
How did you break free of that orbit? Because that seems like it's something that you would just get unraveled in with all of the connections and opportunities.
Oh,
How did you get out?
It was always scary because you just didn't really understand what was really going on, but you just like couldn't get rid of this person and all those secretaries. Just when you thought you weren't going to hear from him again, or those secretaries, they would call up again. And I would try, because I was a model, I would try to go to Greece for 3 months, Cape Town, South Africa for 3 months. I would try to get away as much as I could. Just so that I wasn't like pulled back into something, because the girls started whispering back then.
Right.
Vanity Fair came out with an article in 2003. He took a trip with, Bill Clinton and Kevin Spacey. And so people started understanding, who's this mysterious man and why is he so connected to all these celebrities and politicians and what's going on? So the girls also started talking. But for me personally, it was a girlfriend who had an assault happen to her that Jeffrey orchestrated with another very powerful person from England. And when that happened, we were just like, what the heck is going on? And she was like, you don't know who this man is. This is not okay. And so we all got together and started talking. And so that's when I started trying to distance myself as much as possible. And because I knew of those two things, what happened on the island and what happened with my girlfriend, he was even trying to hold a little tighter on me. And now I understand now, because that person is in a lot of trouble with the royal family. So you have to understand, when you're young, it's like your career is important, your friends, and like this is a small part of like my life. It wasn't, it was a questionable thing, but I didn't really understand it back then like I do now. So
Bringing up Prince Andrew.
Former
Prince Andrew, stripped of his royal title. Speaking of which, cannot believe he's still in line for the throne, even though he's been stripped of his royal title. Thankfully, the king is trying to see to that and get it thrown out, but we'll see what happens. The United Kingdom Metropolitan Police is currently asking a security team if they ever saw or heard anything. It's like, they're not going to say anything. They're not going to rat on the person they used to work for. And what does that say to you about the people that Prince Andrew surrounded himself with?
Well, it's been years. I think it's been 6 years since Virginia Giuffre went to them and said, this is what's happening. I mean, this has been out there for many, many years. And even with the files being released and seeing what was there. But you're right. These are very powerful people involved. There's a lot of enablers, and there's a lot to protect. It's very hard for these victims to get justice. It's going to be hard if they ever do. For me, that's not really the focus, because we are well aware that it's a tough road ahead, and they are protected, as we see here with our government. So it's a difficult fight.
I want to talk about the victims, because something interesting happened today. Where the Northern District of California, there was a class action lawsuit filed against the DOJ and Google. And I want to focus on the DOJ, because this class action lawsuit alleges.
Before he goes into that, she brought up Virginia Giuffre. She was the one in 2015 that had filed a defamation lawsuit against that chick Maxwell in federal court. And her legal team had used civil discovery to subpoena the flight logs, the deposition transcripts, the witness statements, email archives, the works. The case got settled in 2017, but the court documents remained sealed under protective orders. But Virginia Giuffre was a survivor who really did bring a lot of heat towards the situation. And that one had more to do with the children victims, like girls who are like 14 and under. Well, children that were 14 and under.
Hmm. So Lionel, you remember when we was having a conversation about Vince McMahon, right?
Yes, sir.
Do her stories kind of sound similar to that, bro?
No, not to the Vince story. The Vince story was definitely different, and I know people going to look at me with side eye, but with the Vince McMahon story, he had this whole lady, this 35-plus-year-old woman who signed an NDA and agreed to take favors for years, who was getting flowers delivered to her every week, candy, private massages, VIP tickets, new cars, gift cards, all of this to perform the duties to Vince. This woman did not have the say so to be like, I didn't get what I was getting myself into. I didn't understand what I was doing. She wasn't 14, 19, 21, 25. This woman was 35, 36. And she knew full well when she signed that NDA what she was about to do. And she consistently received these gifts. And when Linda told this girl, you ain't getting no more money, now all of a sudden this is abuse.
Yeah, I mean that's where I was kind of drawing a parallel too, because just like we established earlier, right? She was 21 when this first happened, right? So she's normally at a legal age. She's considered as a legal adult who could make her own decisions. And on top of that, right, she was lured there by her friend. So her friend already told her what was going down at this island. You know what I mean? So she
No, the friend didn't. They did confirm that. The friend didn't say that. The friend didn't know they was gonna. The friend didn't confirm the massage until Jeffrey said it.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, she had no idea, because if you go earlier in the story, she outright says, massage, we're not here for massages. And then the girl tells her he does this sometimes.
Okay.
I didn't think he was going to ask us to do it this time.
And so that's to confirm her friend didn't tell her anything else that was going on to the alley. She just said, hey, there's an event at this alley. You want to come with me? And
That's basically what that, yup, that was
she didn't
basically
give
the
her
story.
no other information other than that?
Nope, didn't give her no information. As far as they know, she knew she was an aspiring model. And hey, we're going to this island. She said, now she did bring up the red flag she saw was that there were, young girls there that, younger than her. But in her world, that was normal to see younger girls with older men.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but let's say I'm not taking away that it was actually younger people there and stuff.
No, you're good.
They're like say it's I get that part that the younger people was there and there was absolutely being on grooming and he was having predatory behavior. But the one thing I'm just trying to establish with her in particular, her particular story that she's speaking out, and I'm just trying to establish whether she was an actual victim or whether she was a willing participant.
Yeah, I hear you.
She just telling the story. That's all I'm doing. Because so far, this would seem like that she's not no survivor. It seemed like she just was really participated in this and finally decided that, I'm not benefiting from this no more. So I'm just going to come out and say something about it. But I could be wrong.
Oof.
But yeah, that's why I'm trying to make sure I can get as much truth about it as possible.
Yeah. Dude, you're fine. We appreciate it. All right, push play, Universal. If he didn't go to sleep,
They
okay.
failed on doing the primary thing they said they were going to do, which was redact the identities of the victims.
Mhm.
And in this lawsuit, they claimed that over 100 victims' identities were leaked, or sensitive information about these victims were leaked. Your father served in the US Air Force, and he also worked for NATO. And I'm wondering, given your background, has the handling by the DOJ of these files changed your perspective of this country?
Absolutely. I think where it really changed for me was at the Pam Bondi hearing and sitting right behind her. I've always had faith in our justice system, you know, that they were at least going to investigate, at least hold some people accountable. I know it's very difficult because it's so vast and so big, and there's so many countries involved and so many people involved. I get that. But being at the Pam Bondi hearing, standing there, sitting there with my survivor sisters, Congress fighting for us, standing up and saying, wait a second here. They were pulling out files and files that were blown up, like 8 feet by 5 feet, huge, saying, look here, you know,
Yeah,
like what's
that's about
going
right.
on here? We need answers. And they would ask question after question after question. And she just was like flipping through, looking for something to deflect and like talking about the Dow and talking about this and that. We're like, wait a second here, like answer the questions. But it was that moment where they were like, you need to say something to these survivors behind you, something. And she could have said anything. She didn't have to admit anything, but to at least acknowledge, at least to be like, hey, ladies, blah, blah, blah. But she wouldn't even turn her head. Like, she wouldn't even turn it like this. I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, that was the moment where I was like, oh, we're screwed. Oh, nothing's going to happen here. She's had those files on her desk for almost a year now. She said, oh, I'm going through the files. We're going to release it soon. The president had his whole campaign on we're going to release these files. It was all like BS.
Right from the beginning,
Right from the-
actually.
right from
when
the
When he
beginning.
came into office, they were waving around that folder in front of all those cameras saying, we have it, we're going to look through it. And then months went by, we didn't hear anything.
So that moment was just like the moment where I was just like, wow, this is bigger than we ever knew. The protection is bigger.
I thought your speech on Capitol Hill was really encouraging. Like, I thought that was awesome, how you did that along with the other survivors. It was great. Tell me about your podcast from now on. I want to hear about this. How have you used it?
Pause it real
You know,
quick.
Another theme I see in Epstein survivors.
So y'all remember when last year I was covering the presidential campaign? It started off with President Trump and former President Biden, then it switched over to Vice President Kamala Harris, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I was covering that, right, I had said this. I said that it was like it's like you selecting whichever one is the worst evil. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious about why why government didn't take these files so seriously. And I was thinking about it as she was talking about it, right? Maybe the reason why they doing it is because it's almost as though it's like the worst of two evils scenario. It's like if we were to release everything, and I mean absolutely everything, guess what it's going to prove? It's going to prove that our justice system is corrupt and it's messed up. And then it's going to create anarchy. You know what I mean? But if they don't release it, then it's going to prove that our system is still corrupt, but it's going to be what's the word I'm looking for? But what's the word that people say when it's like fake or whatever? I forgot.
Like artificial?
Yeah, like artificial. You know, it's a made up story, and the media will make it become a make up story. In other words, to try to protect it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Somewhere in that. So people, so people will mention it that way. You know what I'm saying? Where it's just this weird made up story, but we know deep down inside that it's still corrupt. You know what I mean? But So it's like one of the worst of two evils scenario. Like, okay, if we choose to do it this way, then this is going to happen. But if we choose to do it the other way, then this was going to happen.
Right. Fascinating. Fascinating. All right, Lionel, you want to chime in?
I mean, we have a two-tier justice system. You know, when crime happens in a working class neighborhood, justice system moves. But when a billionaire is involved, the system hits a break. Law enforcement had enough evidence in Palm Beach back in 2006 to put him away for life. Instead, federal prosecutors had cut a non-prosecution agreement that protected an elite predator and essentially 3 teenage victims to the lion's den. The system was not failing by accident. It functioned as designed to protect the power. And I mean, got to think about it. You also had the fact that survivor and victim names were leaked and unredacted in the government documents. Even when we're talking about accountability, Urban's favorite word, the system treated its victims as collateral damage. The government was able to protect the names of powerful co-conspirators for decades. But when it came time to unseal the records, they couldn't protect the privacy of the people that were abused.
Yeah, or they just did it to a certain extent to where it could be satisfactory. You know what I mean?
And that's why they waited. That's why they baited. They said, we got these files. We're going to put them out. We waited. They brought it up a little again. They waited. And then they said, here, we're going to put some out. And then they bullshitted with it. And then they said, we're going to put a little bit more out. By the time they finished doing what they wanted to do, they made sure to mitigate the situation.
Facts. And then they continue this process right now. You know what I mean? Where they put out just enough just to satisfy people at the moment, but they don't be the whole entire files where it can literally incriminate all the people who are involved in this.
And the real issue is the hiding in plain sight situation. My bad. Just being in plain sight, because you got Trump name appearing 1,500 times in these files. And you got him from flight logs, social connections, all type of pictures and all type of text documents. Like, that dude is in there a lot. And he was going to all the special places. But what do they say? Volume alone does not equal criminal charges or wrongdoing. So without the direct evidence of participation in the abuse, Trump ain't do nothing wrong. He was just hanging around the dude. So we gotta, they looking at us like we stupid.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, because that's ultimately what they do. They just constantly just play it in our faces as though we don't understand, what's going on. We don't understand, the victims that come out and speak about this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is bad gaslighting. That is, and yeah, they act like we don't understand.
So gaslighter with some narcissism and everything, bro. To be honest.
But go ahead, Universal. You can push the ball. Go ahead.
Yeah, you want me to roll the clip?
Yeah.
All right.
Is that they use the trauma to create something beautiful and powerful with it.
Yes.
Seems like you've done exactly that. Talk to me about that.
That's everything right there. What you just said is everything. because so many victims don't want to talk about what happened to them. Okay, because first of all, it's confusing. First of all, it takes time to understand what happened to them. There's Stockholm syndrome, there's trauma bonding that happens with your abuser. Same with Epstein. A lot of times he was portrayed himself as a mentor and someone that cared about you. So there was always this kind of, I don't know, love-hate is the right word, but this protection over him, not just a fear of speaking out. The podcast came 1 year that I was developing that and speaking out slowly and inviting other survivors to tell their stories. Capitol Hill just came right after that. So I'd gotten used to telling my story a little bit. As you can see when you do watch my speeches, it's not easy for me. It takes a lot of guts and courage on my end to even just to say those things, because there's a lot of shame that's involved. There's a lot of shame even from your own immediate family, from friends, not just from the general public when you're coming forward with something like this crap. You know, this is big. But I just said, you know, I have to do this. And the survivors, we all got together, you know, with Massey and Kana and the other people in our government that wanted to believe in this fight and push this Transparency Act so we can get these files released, so we can understand what happened.
Pause it real quick.
That was an interesting day because
I do got a question too, because like I'm not like really deep into the, you know, the Epstein files and stuff, right? So here's my question. These victims that's coming forth, right, was this like a one and done thing, or was this a continuation process, or do it varies per the victims or per the survivors?
Go ahead, man.
Well, I was gonna say, from what I've seen, it can vary, but a lot of these were comeback victims. Like this woman here, she didn't just have a one-time experience on the island. She was back there a few different times.
Okay. Yeah, because the reason why I was asking that question, because she was mentioning a lot of behavior problems. She was talking about trauma bonding. She was talking about Stockholm syndrome, you know, and different others as well too. Which, you know, that could be very well possible. But I believe that one of the biggest takeaway from that is the whole point that it's not going to be resolved. Period. That, you know, people who's involved in this, right, they're on such a high, powerful pedestal that absolutely nothing's going to happen. So they just give up.
Yeah, they just give in. Plus, you add on what she said. A lot of these girls were getting roped into the modeling industry, or their life was changing. Even though they were getting abused, they were having, you know, they were getting privileges from. They almost made the abuse a privilege. That was one of Epstein's gifts, on the devilish gifts, was he would change these women's life in exchange their abuse. They'd be victims of abuse.
So was he only involved in modeling, or was he involved with everything else, like the movie industry, the music industry, or what?
No, she broke it down. She said modeling, academia, and then science were like his three areas, for at least from what her perspective was. But he was also tied into banking. Let's not get it confused. He was getting bankrolled by some pretty high profile people.
Okay. But yeah, that's like I say, I really haven't been like really digging real deep into the Epstein files. I just only heard this little bit of it. So what I'm learning today is brand new to me. Other than her, because I seen her before. I watched, you know, several videos before, so I'm familiar with her, and that's why I was kind of questioning her story as well too.
Yeah. We do gotta keep.
The mass majority of the survivors, it was not a one-time situation. Many went back repeatedly for months or even years. I do know that the majority of the age range was between 14 to 17 years old, and he was putting cash in their hands. And even after experiencing the trauma of their first visit, you know, some of them would need food, rent, and that's how he would lure them back. And he didn't give them just one-time payments. He wanted to build financial dependencies. The court records show that he paid college tuitions, provided apartments, funded modeling visas, offered career advancements through his quote unquote connections. And once you accept that as a young woman, like housing or tuition, what happens when you say you don't want it no more? You about to get home. You about to be homeless. Your immigration status, about to be revoked. Career destruction. And again, it wasn't just Maxine. You had Maxwell there also, and they were manipulators. And they created a bond where a lot of the victims blamed themselves for the abuse.
Mhm.
But to the other one, the modeling was just an aesthetic decoy. It was a recruitment engine because he had a wide web of elite access. He was, as Universal brought up, he was in a lot of different things from art and stuff. Banking. He was donating to colleges, giving millions to Harvard, MIT, research labs. Think about that. He had scientific retreats at his private island. He had theoretical physicists and geneticists there. He was involved in political lobbying. He had cross-party political access, going across from the US, the UK, Israel, Europe. The dude had leverage. He had tax-exempt foundations. He was funding academics, artists, charities. I mean, the modeling was just a recruitment strategy. That dude used it to get young women, but he used his network in high finance, academic science, philanthropy, political lobbying, all to shield himself. He built an ecosystem where elite power and wealth were used to validate and protect them. These girls never stood a chance.
Yeah, man. You explaining that, man. I was thinking about that a lot, bro. I was thinking about well, when you just tie this around about with us as men about masculinity and us, being leaders and all this stuff there, right? It honestly would give a very legitimate argument about modern day feminism and why the women are the way that they are right now. You know what I mean? When we have this high level of patriarchal predatory behavior that's so highly advanced, highly sophisticated. You know what I'm saying?
I agree 100%. I often say manhood and masculinity is in a fallen state. A lot of this stuff wouldn't happen if we had men to bounce or to counter it. But then some people will say, well, Epstein was a real man. He had power, he had influence, he had control. But look what he did with it, So it's twisted, man.
But also think about what he was involved in. Y'all was hearing me talk. I mean, he was a wealth manager, literally for the founder of Victoria's Secret. Like, he was handling billions of dollars and managing private trust and moving in capital through tax havens and collecting multi-million-dollar fees. The dude literally was on Wall Street and positioning himself as a financial fixer. So you have all these chicks who are, wearing pink, going to Victoria's Secret, trying to be cute. This is one of the masterminds helping funding it. The same dude who is abusing these women and got his whole network used to lure these same chicks into this. And then once you get one of them, what do? Remember the guy, Universal, that we brought up? The pedo guy who talked about how he would abuse the one boy, or he would groom the boy and then get him to bring his friends over so he can abuse them. This is what the girl is telling us. Because he used that little girl. Because it already happened to her. and he used it to lure this woman in, and then he let that happen. He made it happen. So he already had a network of establishing this, but again, he's protected. He's what the women would call a real man.
Yeah, they call him a high value man for sure.
Yup.
Due to his social economical status, but that's what make it so twisted. That's what make it evil too. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. There was a question in the chat. Have you guys seen those pictures that were released a few months ago where they finally let the public see all of the files? He literally had children's pictures just hanging up on his walls and so much more.
Yes, I have seen probably too much, but I've seen the pictures. I've seen him with the children in very inappropriate positions and angles. And he was a man that definitely loved taking pictures with children, unfortunately. And these were not 14-year-olds. These were single digit numbers.
Mm.
Yeah, that's insane, bro. That is crazy.
But
now check this out, Lightning. That goes back to what I tease you about all the time about Spider-Man, man. Talking about great power comes with great responsibility. This dude here took it to a whole nother level, bro. That's insane.
Mm-hmm. And then you gotta, my mind goes to where were these children's parents, or at least their guardians or caregivers or whatever. Like, these are little ass kids, man. 13, 14. That's crazy, bro. Just on an island, just gone. Yeah, exactly.
Look, I'll put it to you this way. Now I know this is going to sound like real sick, bro, but I'm just looking at it as logical as possible. Now, the parents, they're more likely they was absolutely there. They was absolutely involved in it, right? The reason why is because, let's check this out. If this man could literally change your life, you know what I mean, where you're living either poor or middle class, right? And this man come out and he got all this status, he got all this power, connections, and all these different other things, you know what I mean? So guess what the parents gonna do? That's a great deal. All they got to do is pretty much sacrifice their children. That's a great deal to them. Because that's something that they don't even have to work hard for anymore. They don't necessarily have to do a 9-to-5 no more. They don't have to put up with crazy bosses and all this other weird stuff. If they wanted to, they could get some of his connections and literally build a business off of it and all kind of weird stuff. But it is so sick that even, you know, the parents who's involved in this will put their children in there just so they can have a certain type of lifestyle to live. You know what I mean?
You know, I don't like having this information sometimes. So what they was able to dig up in a lot of the court cases, unfortunately, and their findings, is that Epstein and Maxwell didn't hide from these parents. They were courting a lot of the parents. If you were struggling, working class parents, they offered scholarships, art camp tuition, modeling opportunities for the daughters. You know, if you're a struggling parent to pay the bills, you know, Maxwell looked like a wealthy, sophisticated godmother offering their child a ticket out of poverty. Parents were literally giving permission for their teens to travel, believing Maxwell was going to chaperone them. And a lot of teenagers don't trust telling their parents the truth. That's just the reality. So whatever happens, the kids aren't going to say nothing. So they told their parents they had a part-time job as a spa assistant, a receptionist, a personal assistant. So when they came home with money, like $200, $300, you know, they would hid the money or told their parents it was tips. And again, this is recorded information that they got. So his network was literally targeting these kids from broken, under-resourced households, foster care, situations where the parents were working multiple shifts or absent. And of course, If it was the rich parents, they just didn't care. They just gave the consent away because we're getting something out of this also. But when you also ask about the parents, you got to remember they had not just an island, but an estate full of housekeepers, drivers, estate managers, and the court. They told us they were literally handed manuals that commanded them. Now, again, this was all the people that was there. In court, they said they were handed manuals that said, you see nothing, you hear nothing, you say nothing. So he had a system, an ecosystem.
Yeah, yeah, man.
So that's why I said, if you go back to this lady right here, I mean, if she was 21, it kind of didn't matter. What chance did she really have? The second she set foot on that island and knew nothing, unfortunately, nobody else on that island knew nothing either. They didn't hear nothing. They didn't see nothing.
Yeah, so it's literally making a deal with the devil, bro.
And she didn't know the deal until literally he spoke the words. Hey, let's go for a massage.
Well, I mean, who didn't know?
Her. That was the thing. When she was at the table after having dinner, when he was like finally ready, she said, that's what she said at the beginning, when she said, hey, they thinking they about to leave. But Epstein was like, no, you can't leave. It's too dark out. And, let's go for a massage. And then the little girl said, oh man, I didn't think he was going to do that this time. And she said she was confused. She didn't know what the hell she was talking about. What do you mean massage? And then that's when the girl took her to the vet.
So the girl that was her friend, right? She was the one recruiting her.
Yeah, from what I'm understanding, because she never saw her again after this event.
And that's
because it was a friend that invited her to the island.
Correct. It's another young model. She was a little younger than her, but she had met her through the agency. So that's what roped her in. She thought it was okay because, this is my new friend from the modeling agency.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
But again, that we've learned in a couple of episodes before, that is a predator tactic where they find a friend to rope and bring these other girls in. And you see this in trafficking situations too. Yeah. They get these girls, they go to high school together. Oh, see if she wants to come over after school. Like they that type of shit.
Mm-hmm. The old beta switch tactic, huh?
Yeah, sick.
Yeah, that's what we was trying to say earlier. This girl was ignorant to the situation. She didn't know until the last minute.
Wow, man. But yeah, you continue the video.
All right, I wrote a clip.
I was going to do my speech and I was going to talk about my story a little bit, but I'm empathetic and doing this work with survivors with my podcast and giving them the seat to say, hey, I was a victim, but I'm turning that into a survivor because I'm going to own my story. I'm going to get rid of the shame and put that where it belongs. And I'm going to step into my power again. So that was that moment where I was listening to all these girls, and it's the young girls. I was in my early 20s and there was hundreds of girls that were in their early 20s, but there was a lot that were 14 and 15 years old. And I have a child that age. And it was making me mad listening to these stories of these girls that didn't really have a choice of to make a few $100s and give that money to their families and be abused in the way that they were. I was getting angry. Yeah. And when it was my turn, I was one of the last ones to go. I was just like, who the hell do you think you are? You know what I mean? To be able to do this to hundreds of girls and feel like you have all the power over us, that you have files. I mean, how big are these files? And that you're not going to let us know what's going on. You're not going to let us be able to connect the dots and tell our stories and understand what the frig happened to us back then. So I just stood up there and I was like, oh, you think you got it? You think you have the power? Well, you know, I'm gonna take my power back, because you're saying you have a list of people. Well, so do we. You don't think we know who was there? You don't think we can make our own list? And so I did say that. I think it got flipped and turned every which way. It went global, it went all over the world, that I was going to create this list and read it on the House floor. It was never that. It was like, I'm speaking to survivors out there. Come forward. Let's create our own list and let's talk amongst each other and let's do something about this. Let's take our power back. That was that moment.
And you've been building towards that with From Now On. And I think that's really beautiful. That's awesome. Because the power for the files to be released kind of fell onto the people after a certain amount of time. There was so much outcry because everybody knew they existed. And so it was up to the Trump administration, the DOJ, to go, okay, here we go. But then they came out, over 3.5 million files, all those redactions. And the redactions aren't even protecting the victims. There are men in these files and names of co-conspirators that are redacted. They're not victims. They're maybe not even part of an ongoing investigation.
Universal closet.
And so when they came out and you saw,
I just want y'all to know, she's saying hundreds of girls. We do know that roughly 150 identified and confirmed survivors came forward directly. But the Justice Department did confirm that they identified over 1,200 survivors and victims in the FBI files, the flight records, the seized photo rosters. So the numbers did cross into the 1,000 threshold. And like he just brought up, it wasn't just women.
So I don't think they made enough noise, to be honest with you. I mean, well, what they did, it helped, but I don't think they made enough noise. I believe the noise that they should have made should have been on the same level of, black people dealing with police brutality and
I agree.
Black Lives Matters and different things like that, where people will literally protest and tear up the city and do all this stuff. I believe they should have been on that level of making noise, versus this always going to Capitol Hill and going to the House floor and say what you got to say. Then the media is going to only show what they want the people to see, you know what I mean? Unless you actually there.
And that's one of the reasons we're doing this right now. Because a lot of the hype did die off, and that was by design.
Yeah, because I see a lot of the House representatives that they've been talking about it, like, say for example, Jasmine Crockett and her constituents and stuff. They've been talking about it a lot, trying to expose it. But even then, it still don't get to that higher level to where people are not fed up about it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, Epstein file, okay, and they're just treated like that versus the Epstein file. Yeah, this is something that needs to be done for real. You know what I mean? It needs to be number one on the list.
But remember who got prosecuted? There was only one primary federal conviction, Ghislaine Maxwell.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only person. They did indict, what's his name? Jean-Luc Brunel, but that person died in prison awaiting for trial. Of course they did, right? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the 2008 plea deal granted immunity to named and unnamed co-conspirators. So, only one person actually was held accountable for this, but we know that they were flying in people, shipping in people to take advantage of these victims. So it's not loud because it's a whole ecosystem involved of people that can just be quiet. Because that's the currency. Silence. Silence is the currency.
I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah, to a certain extent, I agree with that. But just reference back, when we was dealing with the BLM movement and all the stuff there, bro. It didn't matter how much money you had or anything like that. When they wanted their voice to be heard, they made their voice be heard. Period. You know what I'm
I
saying?
agree.
Were to the point they were just doing some real ignorant stuff. You know what I mean? Like turning up the city and stuff like that. Which I don't agree with that, but however, that was their way of getting their voice heard. And in that whole entire arc, right, that we dealt with, that literally went international, bro, where even international cities was participating in that. You know what I'm saying? It was, cities and, in Europe and everywhere participated in that one little thing that happened. Or
30
several little
countries.
things. Yeah, 30 countries. But when it comes to this, you mean to tell me that
Silence.
silence where money is that strong, where people is not saying anything about it other than what they want to be heard, and that's it?
He created a functional, highly sophisticated shadow economy. And this is, again, an operation that has spanned 3 decades across multiple global jurisdictions in plain sight of the world's most powerful institutions. And that's what we see. You don't see the noise. You don't see the outrage. We got the information.
Let me ask you guys a question. Because, yes, Jeffrey Epstein put together a demonic ecosystem of abuse. Do you guys think he's the only one out here? Are there other quote unquote Jeffrey Epsteins out here? Because the numbers are too high for it to just be him. What are your thoughts?
So I believe it is. I believe that this particular ecosystem goes globally. To be honest with you, there are a lot of people in positions of power to do these certain heinous acts. You know what I mean? But once again, if we're focused on our system, our government system, be a democracy, right? Part of the democracy is that we, the people, are the one who have to speak out on it. But unfortunately, we've been so programmed, we've been so brainwashed to where we allow other people to do it on our behalf. You know what I mean? And that ain't how the way the system's supposed to be.
I agree. He created a blueprint, unfortunately. Not the industry, but he definitely created a blueprint. And Puffy, Sean Combs, got a very similar situation to Epstein. In the modeling world, Peter Nygaard had a very similar situation to Epstein. There are some retail empires that have done something similar that, they got backed by legal cover-ups. We know that in certain Olympic athletic programs, religious organizations, they have a situation similar to Epstein. Some of these do span decades, but these networks don't exist because one person is evil. They exist because our society concentrates immense power and wealth without oversight.
Mm-hmm.
So there's multiple ecosystems like this that are there. A name might get caught, but by the time we catch somebody, they've already established a circle of people that's going to keep this going.
So I have a question. So what are they getting out of this ecosystem? But besides the obvious, you know what I mean? Is it profitable for them to how this ecosystem continue to go on the way it is, or what's the ultimate currency on this? In other words,
Where I'm at right now, I think is power and pleasure, man. I think it gives these people a secret, a thing, a desire that's demonic that keeps them going, and it's a power play. That's what I think it is.
If you're looking at in terms of Epstein in general, like he generated upwards over $1 billion in income from all of this. His estate when he died was valued over 600 million. But he wasn't making money from traditional stock trading or his quote unquote jobs. Like a lot of his money was coming from fraud and the stuff he was doing, his deals. That's where it was coming from. And what was he getting? He was getting protection. And then in conjunction, he was giving other people protection. So he got to create a whole situation where, again, violence was the atmosphere. Blindness was the atmosphere. Deafness was the atmosphere. And he got to play with kids. He got to play with teens. He got to play with the young models. And then he would invite his friends over and they would have parties. And these people would get to also play with these people. And guess what these people would do? Give money.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that. Was this a pay-to-play service that he was doing too?
They would give him money. Because guess what? I like that little person right there. Keep him on stock. I'll be back. I like parties like this. I can't wait to come back. Here's something for the funding. Keep the party going. Here's something for some protection. And in that respect, guess what he could do? He could use that money to fund scientific research, private flights, hosting, creating social leverage. So this became, and again, he had information. That was another thing confirmed. He was the guy who was holding everyone's secrets. And holding information ended up becoming more valuable than money. Although, again, he was still getting the money. So now he has information and money. Because guess what? We're not about to go out. People aren't just going out and telling you that I was messing around with some minor or some, teen. That's got to get kept on the hush hush. And only Epstein knows about it. So it was all a win-win for him.
Mm-hmm.
And again, he was charging billionaires, tens of millions in advisory fees, funneling money. He was making money. And they found out that processing cash withdrawals were linked to the trafficking. It wasn't just a crime ring. It was a high yield business model for everybody that was going to be involved. And power and pleasure, like he said, that became what it was.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to this girl. She never stood a chance.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to everybody who are watching on the Urban Lounge podcast. We are cross streaming on the Universal Jones show. I'm gonna drop his handle in my chat right now. Make sure you go over and sub up to the Universal Jones show channel so you can get more of this great content over there as well too. Phenomenal content creator.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, we're gonna play a little bit more of this, then we'll wrap it up for tonight. So if you got any final questions in the chat, go ahead and drop them so we answer them before we wrap up. I'm gonna roll the clip. We're almost done with it.
You saw that. How did that make you feel?
Well, we were toyed with and played with for many months leading up to that point. And that was just another way of just messing around with us. Because you know how easy it is to redact the victims' names and not redact the powerful men's names. I mean, it's very easy to, why did you make that choice? That was a choice. It was awful what they did. My name was redacted, but I knew many, many people, many girls, many women now, whose names were put out there to the general public. That's not okay. A lot of those girls were Jane Does. A lot of them, their emails, their pictures, their private information. You got to remember, there's hundreds of girls that haven't come forward. And now all of a sudden their names are public. Why would you do that? There's only one reason why you would do that, you know? And why would you protect the men?
Right, exactly.
You know, you're protecting them.
Exactly. Ro Khanna and Massey, you know, Khanna went in there and he saw the unredacted files. And he came out to the press and basically said, guys, oh my God, do you think we only know the tip of the iceberg? Do you think that it goes so much deeper than what we know? And if so, how much? I mean, how severe can this really be?
I've been the same person. I'll be honest with you. I've been the same person since those files were released January 30th. Yeah, because I've always known about the hundreds of girls in the mauling industry and that were, 19 to 24. I've always known about that. It was hard for me to come to terms with he was and Galen and whoever else were abusing minors. That was hard.
I'm sorry.
That was hard. That was hard for me. But seeing what came out in the files, in the last couple months, I have no words to describe. We all have seen it. They're written by the people. No one's making this stuff up. It's there in plain English, what they're talking about. It's sick. And I don't understand why, once you see that type of depravity and darkness and sadism, like why you wouldn't look into that. Now it's time to look into it from just seeing that. Like if you don't care about the girls overage and you don't care about these underage, but when you're talking about children or babies or whatever else is going on, I think it's time to do something about it. And when people can't do what's right, I'm just losing faith in humanity at this point.
I mean, to go from where you were after meeting Jeffrey Epstein initially to now, you've had an incredible arc.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been through so much, not just your own self-healing journey, but also under the oppression of these powerful, influential men. And somehow you managed to break out of that. And
not easily.
Not easily. It was not an easy thing to do. And I admire you for that.
Thank you.
No doubt about it, our audience does as well. What has your healing journey been like? How difficult was that for you?
Whew. The healing journey has not been easy. Unfortunately, like a lot of the victims I think that are still out there and still silenced, I just suppressed it for 15 years. I didn't talk about it. If I saw it on the news, it was just turned a blind eye. I just didn't want to even go there in my mind that man was that bad. Someone that I knew and someone I had basically stuck up for many years. Oh, he's a great guy. He was a mentor. He did good things for me, and not thinking about anything else. And I still have friends who still say that, I still, they don't want to even think about it because it's just too much to take on. And I think if it had just been my story to speak out about, I probably would have never have done it. I only started speaking out for the first couple of years was because of Virginia Giuffre and wanting to support her story for my girlfriend who was abused and wanting to support her story and wanting to support other survivor stories. It took me a long time to get to my story. And it was after meeting more survivors were like, got a picture of you from back then. Like you were here, you were there. And I'm just like I blacked out all of that because it's just, it's kind of too painful. And that is the survivor struggle, is that most people don't even want to think about what happened to them. But what I can tell you,
Jay, pause it real
what
quick,
I've
bro.
learned from my podcast, me telling my own story.
So I can actually relate to her on that. The reason why is because for nearly over like about 7 or 8 years, and I didn't want to come out and tell my particular story or the things that I been through, you know what I mean, and stuff. And the reason why, because of different things, and I was suppressing it because of, you know, my children, and I didn't want my children, you know, to see their mother in a negative light, or and you know, different things like that. Then I didn't want it to come back around to where it'll be weaponized, where they'll try to find some type of way to take my children away from me and stuff. So I just kind of just kept quiet and suppressed it, and only just said, you know, certain things, you know what I mean? But now, what made me start really talking about it is when I started seeing other, you know, preferably other men who've been through the same thing that I've been through, and they was silent as well too. They wanted to talk, but they just didn't have a voice to speak. You know what I mean? And so that literally what changed my perspective about it. Like, you know what? I'm just gonna go and put it all on the line. I'm gonna talk about it, but I'm gonna talk about it in a way to not only that, you know, I survived this, right, but I'm gonna talk about it in a way where we could learn from each other. You know what I mean? And we could learn from each other. We could learn what we can do to prevent other brothers from experiencing these same type of situations. You know what I'm saying?
Well, for you, what kind of emotion was behind that? Was it like shame or fear, or what held you back from sharing for so long?
Well, first of all, it dealt with fear. It was fear of me losing my relationship with my children, because I already have been, you know, my image already been taken away due to what she was doing and stuff, right? So that was already gone. Everything was already gone. So the one thing I had left was really just my children. So I was in fear that if I were to, you know, start speaking out about it, start talking about it, that she'll, you know, go back again and weaponize the court systems. Then next thing you know, the court system will give a favor, and I end up losing my relationship with my children. You know what I mean? So that's what kept me quiet on it for so long, because of that particular fear behind it, you know?
Yeah. Definitely understand that.
Yeah, so but now, since my children are older now, it's different. They're not young anymore, you know, they're older. And so now they can make their own choices, decisions, and regardless of what happens now, you know, it don't even matter now. So that's why I'm like really like, yeah, I'm all in it now. So
Yeah. Lana, did you want to chime in here at all?
No, not for this one.
All right, I'm gonna roll the clip. We'll round it out here.
And sitting there with guests that have been through domestic violence, stalking, serial predators, the big ones, and even just down to child abuse. We all have the same shame of not wanting to confront what happened to us. But I can tell you, when you do, that's when everything is revealed of who you really are, because you just have to own it, you know, and understand it, go through the therapy, talk to somebody about it, or even be public about it. The more public I've been, the more powerful I'm feeling, and the more I don't even own that anymore. The more I know I was innocent. I was a young girl, you know, just trying to make the best of things. That was a master manipulator and groomer that I was up against. You have to come to terms with that to be able to move on from it and find your inner authentic voice.
You could say that this tragic experience formed you into an icon that empowers other women who have had these experiences to speak out like you, which is awesome.
Aww.
Like, it's fantastic.
I love that.
And
An
it's
icon.
awesome.
That's so sweet.
Icon.
I would
really.
hope that
Yeah.
I could be that voice for people.
A figurehead as well. And,
Wow.
you know, if you could send a message to any girls watching this that feel the shame that you felt, what would that message be?
Well, just for you to understand that it wasn't easy for me to stand up on Capitol Hill each time I go. Each time you can hear my voice breaking. It's not easy. I will tell you, it is not easy. I hear the public. I hear them. And the DMs, the emails, all the letters I get, you know, everything. I hear them. And after Capitol Hill, there was hundreds of people that reached out just to say, you know, like, you inspire me or you empower me. And that just touched me. And that made me be like, I got to keep doing this. You know, and I was in Ireland recently on the Late Late Show, which is their big show. And that wasn't easy. I was sweating like crazy because I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, wasn't what I envisioned being on a TV show and talking about it. That's just not easy. But after that, I had so many people reach out to me, and I'm talking about men that reached out to me who were just like, Lisa, never told anybody this, but I was abused when I was a child 20 years ago, 50 years ago. And that's what really touches me, to know that someone's holding this secret for so many years, never told anyone. And they're like, I want to tell you because you inspire me. That's why I continue doing this.
What does it feel like to be that for people? It must be incredible.
I used to feel like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. How am I going to handle this? How am I going to respond to everybody who's reaching out? But that's why I have the podcast, is to be able to have that voice for those people. I think it's a movement right now. And people are breaking, and they want to own what happened to them.
It's a commodity in media. People need platforms to go and talk about their experiences in a safe, non-judgmental space.
Yeah, like what you're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're not just talking about celebrities anymore. Like, you know what I mean? You're talking about real issues.
Well, coming from you, that means so much, because I'm just a 21-year-old that liked YouTube starting out. So to be sitting here with you, someone with a massive platform, someone that's spoken on Capitol Hill, stood before Congress, it's huge. So thank you so much.
Thank
Words
you.
can't describe. I got one more question for you to round this out. What's next for Lisa Phillips?
Well, I'm going to continue this fight and continue being a person that empowers others to also find that voice inside. The podcast, that's what's next. I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of it. And we're looking for a home right now with my team and my manager to have these stories of survivorship and also education and empowerment.
Right.
That's where it's going to be right now. And that's where I feel really comfortable with my voice.
Well, Lisa, thank
you. All right. I'm going to be the person who's going to say this. Two things that bother me throughout this. The first thing is, she mentioned the podcast a lot. And I felt like at some points it kind of took away from the impact of what she's telling us, the narrative, the story, and almost felt like a pitch to the show. This kind of stands out to me.
I got you.
Hey,
go ahead.
Hey, UJ, that was one of the main reasons why I was questioning her story, to be honest with you.
Yeah, because I mean, I would have been fine if they would have mentioned it like twice. Got it. You're doing a podcast. You're trying to uplift the victims. You want other people to come out and tell their stories. But it was like, I mean, we watched this whole thing. It was probably mentioned like maybe 6 or 7 times. It's a lot.
Yeah, because to me, it seemed like that she's still benefiting from this. So I hate to say it like this, but that's what it seems like to me, that she's literally benefiting from this still, even to this day. That's why I mentioned earlier that, hey, there literally are victims out there who have dealt with this, and they're still dealing with this, and they're still dealing with this trauma. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'm not saying that she shouldn't be doing the podcast. It just seems like a pitch. And I think that sometimes when you have situations like this, that can take away from a lot of what you're trying to really do, which is uplift the voices and develop some awareness and gain some exposure on the whole issue. So that's one element of it. Dang, I forgot my second point. Wait, she did this a couple times. Who was it? Hold on, I'll let you guys chime in. I gotta gather my thoughts. Hold on one second.
Oh, go ahead, Lionel.
Oh, it's been a show, man. It's definitely been a show. We actually got more videos. I mean, that'll probably be the next few episodes, actually, because we actually got a couple of other videos to go over.
Yeah, because I was like, hold up, this kind of unusual for y'all, because normally y'all would have went through like about almost like 6 videos in the series.
No, I thought it was important actually to let some of these stories actually go on, because he was actually thinking we was going to have some Instagram short videos, but that is not the videos that I had.
No, he had the long version of these interviews, which is fine. I thought this was pretty informative. It connected a lot of dots that we've already covered before. Yeah, we definitely be checking this out too. I remember my other point, and it happened at the end. I'm just gonna have to say it. A lot of them, this is my assumption. A lot of the men that reached out to her to tell their stories only did it because she's attractive. I think that is a form of trauma bonding that a lot of those men did. If she was some overweight woman who was not a former model, I don't know if they would still come out and share those stories with her, or a guy for that matter.
Hey, UJ.
Yeah.
I am like very, very, very attentive about things that happen, right? Did you notice what the cameraman had did towards the end?
No, but I did notice a couple of things that bothered me just because I'd done film before. But no, let me see. He zoomed in on her. I know that.
He had did an aerial view on her, and it was about 60 seconds long.
I did notice that. Yes, I did. Oh, I'm bringing it back. Go ahead. Let's talk about it. I'm bringing it back. I did notice that actually. Yep. I'm gonna just mute it actually. Yep. Go for it. Talk about it.
Yeah. So that's why I noticed how when he did, I was like, why did the cameraman did an aerial view on her, like as though he's trying to look at her breasts or something, bro?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did that a couple times on her, man. I did pick that up. I did.
Y'all, man.
And my eyes went straight there too. I ain't gonna hold you.
We logical, bro. Stop it.
I was like, those are some nice necklaces she's got on there. Where is it? I did notice that. That's crazy because when I was looking at something and I looked back and then that's what I caught and I was like, what is going on? And then they went back. They also had some weird audio stuff going on. Like he would be asking a question and then the audio would cut out and then it would go to her. I thought that was bizarre too. Where was that?
Yeah, it happened like really, really fast. I think it's like less than 60 seconds when it happened, bro.
Towards the end, yeah. But yeah, man, dang.
What was weird about it, bro? It was just only on her. It wasn't on the overall. They never did it on him. Yeah, it wasn't on both of them. It was just only on her, bro.
Yep. And my other thought of what the audio was, man, this is such a fancy setup because I was looking at the cameras and all that. Like, man, this is a fancy setup. And then they have audio issues. Didn't make any sense to me, but that's my brain. That's how weird I am. But yeah, I did see that.
Also, when I'm thinking about this, for the audio, UJ, I'm thinking that he may have got flagged on some things on YouTube. So YouTube could do certain things to kind of block out the audio.
Yeah, that's true. There's one right here. You'll catch it here in a second. See that shot right there. Like that.
Yeah, that is so bizarre, bro.
There's no need for this shot. There's no need for this shot. No need. And it's so quick too. But again, you know, I don't know if this is the first video that we had pulled up, but like,
yeah,
you know, her being an attractive woman, I think also gives her a lot more leeway to have this voice, and she will get a lot of other people that will come towards her and share their stories or want to get connected. And I think for a lot of men, that's a form of trauma bonding, for sure. It's like, oh, I want to tell you my story. What happened to me? And they start to identify. So it also ties into some of the psychological pieces of what's going on as well. Yeah. Interesting stuff, man. Interesting stuff. Before we close out, have you guys seen the EDP documentary?
No, I haven't seen it.
Do y'all even know who that is?
No.
Nope.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna put y'all on real quick. Let me pull it up. I think I can. So EDP 445. Is there a trailer that I can play? Yeah. So we will have to cover this, Lionel, soon. I know we'll get to the Epstein stuff, but yeah, I'm gonna pull the trailer up. This guy was a content creator. He got in a lot of trouble because he was soliciting young girls multiple times.
Oh, damn.
And he's back to tell his story. This is him. And EDP stands for Eat That Pussy. There we go.
How old before? And again, I have it right here. I know the answer, but I just need you to tell me the answer. How old is she? 13. 13, okay. And before we get into the messages, there was sexual content involved, yes or no? Correct. And you said correct. Okay, all right. Again, so what brings you out here today? Well, I was actually coming out here to pick up a cupcake. This is the story of EDP 445.
Like, he went to that place to have sex with a 13-year-old.
Definitely viewer discretion is advised. Dude's a perverted dude.
EDP soliciting sex from who he thinks is an underage kid.
He sent me videos of him masturbating.
I would say EDP is completely innocent.
So what advice would I give to EDP 445? You need to stop doing this documentary.
Fucking a bitch's innocence away, you know?
Why do you think you wanted to have sex with a 13-year-old?
I mean, the reason why I wanted to have sex with a 13-year-old is already fucking clear. Oh, well, he was talking to 13 and 12-year-olds. Fuck all that. None of you fucking faggots can break my ass because I'm still standing, bitch.
So there you have it. Now, I haven't watched the documentary yet, but we may have another insight to another predator to analyze for sure. But go ahead. Any thoughts from the trailer?
That was something.
But bro is, I could just tell by, how the way he's talking, he's involved in that neo-red pill ideology. Because there are different levels to red pill that people don't understand. There's the traditional red pill, philosophy red pill, the neo-red pill, but that's what he's part of, that neo-red pill, where they believe in all this stuff, including domestic discipline.
Yeah, it's one hell of a documentary and story, and he's a part of it. So they're not making it about him. He's like leading that. He's like leading it. It's insane, man. But yeah, any final thoughts from you, gentlemen? We'll start with Urban, and we'll go to you, Lionel, and then I'll wrap us up here.
Yeah, once again, great, phenomenal show. I love it when y'all do the one Hidden Harm series. That's why I try to do my best to support it. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, I had the live schedule show. I'm still gonna do that live right after this show ends late at night. Perfect. But yeah, whenever y'all do the Hidden Harm series, I'll make sure that I pull up, because y'all do a great and phenomenal job of covering the series for real. And I believe that it needs to be heard for real. We talk about way more. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate that. Also, everybody who are tuning into my channel right now, I do have Universal Jones handle drop into my chat. Make sure that you sub up to his channel. Once again, he is a great, phenomenal content creator. And y'all already know my moderator, Lionel. He be up in the chat all the time as Shugverse. So y'all should already be subbed up to him. All right. So other than that, that's it.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Definitely appreciate you. Thanks for sharing your audience and coming up and sharing your wisdom, man. Always appreciate it.
No problem.
Perfect. Lionel, final thoughts, sir. What's going on?
Yeah, before we sign off, I want us to strip away the famous names, the politics, the billionaires' titles for a second, and focus on what actually matters, and that is the human cost. Behind every file number and every redacted line, these documents is a real person, a teenager who was lied to, exploited, spent decades believing that no one would listen if she spoke up. The ultimate tragedy of this story isn't just the predators, it's the community of adults, institutions, and leaders who looked the other way because it was comfortable. Silence. If we want to make sure an ecosystem like this doesn't happen, we got to start listening to the victims when they speak, breaking the culture of silence in our own lives, holding power accountable, no matter how rich or famous it is. Like, Epstein didn't build an empire on money alone. He built it on the silence he bought from the desperate and the silence he extracted from the powerful. The files are out, the blueprint is exposed, and the curtain is pulled back. It is up to us to make sure that silence is never allowed to be a valid currency. But thank y'all so much for the support. Thank you for dropping into the chat and keeping this conversation alive. I appreciate all of y'all.
Amazing. Thank you, Lionel. All right, folks, that's going to wrap us up for today. Appreciate the folks who came by for the live. Also appreciate the folks who are going to watch this on the playback. Yeah, on this channel, we talk about a lot of different things. Most of it is around human behavior. And unfortunately, one of the realities of human behavior is this demonic behavior of abusing and targeting children. And so many people are involved or have been impacted by this over the years. It's important that we do have these conversations and we're honest about them and we pick up on the behaviors and the patterns so that we can protect ourselves, our kids, our nieces and nephews, and generations to come, because unfortunately these predators won't stop. So hopefully we won't either as we try to combat the efforts that they do. I want you all to take care of yourselves, be safe, be constructive, be well, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.